Importance of fundamental duties. In order to establish a strong national character and a strong foundation, fundamental duties were introduced. It not only provide us with a feeling of harmony, but also with a feeling of spirit of brotherhood. And the gaps in a society can only be filled if each and every citizen perform his or her duty well. The importance of fundamental duties are as follows. It serves as a constant reminder that while enjoying their fundamental rights, people should fulfill their fundamental duties. It provides people that they should not perform any antisocial activity. It safeguards the public property also. It can held any law reasonable. If in case there is the constitutional validity of an act is challenged in the court, and the act gives any effect to the fundamental duties, then the court can hold this act reasonable. Fundamental duties also provide that through fundamental duties, people can take active participation in the society. Also, fundamental duties promote discipline in the society. Criticism. Critics have said that the fundamental duties list is not exhaustive. It is vague. It contains some complex words such as composite culture, which a normal man cannot understand. Also, the position of these duties are wrong. It should be contained in part 3 with fundamental rights and not with directive principle of state policy in part 4. Also, the most important duties like duty to vote, duty to pay tax have not been included in the list. These duties have not been given a legal sanction, so there is no use of including these duties in the Indian Constitution. Now, fundamental duty case laws. There are various landmark case laws under fundamental duties. Let us discuss two. In Bijoy Emmanuel versus State of Kerala, here 3 students were expelled from the school because there was a notice from the headmaster that every person should stand up with respect and sing the national anthem. But these students stand up with respect for the national anthem, but they didn't sing the national anthem because it was against their religious faith. So they committed an offense under Honors Act. But the court held that they haven't committed any offense. They only didn't sing the national anthem, but they stood up with respect. So this decision was reversed by the court. In MC Mehta 2 versus Union of India, the Supreme Court held that there should be a lecture at least for 1 hour in 1 week on how to protect and improve our natural environment. The central government should make sure for this, and he should distribute books in the educational institution for free on how to protect and improve the environment. Enforcement of fundamental duties. There is no legal sanction that is provided in case of violation of any fundamental duties, and there is no legal provision that helps in enforceability of fundamental duties. But the fundamental duties are of great importance. One should realize its importance and follow the fundamental duties, because these are those duties which if the law should not provide should be fulfilled by each and every citizen. Some reason because of their non-implementation are also lack of awareness. So efforts should be made by central government and society and every citizen collectively in order to make citizens aware of the fundamental duties. Fundamental duties complement fundamental rights. Our Indian Constitution not only provides us with fundamental rights but also with fundamental duties. Although fundamental rights were introduced much before than the fundamental duties. The fundamental duties and fundamental rights are complementary to each other. Let us take an example. Article 21 of the Indian Constitution provides free and compulsory education to the children who belong to the age group of 6 to 14 years. While Article 51 Clause J provide us that the parent and the guardian should ensure that their child who is between 6 to 14 years of age should get free and compulsory education. But in today's day, most of the people, while enforcing their fundamental rights, forget about their fundamental duties and violate them. In a university, people by using their fundamental right of freedom of speech and expression, were protesting and saying anti-social slogans against India. But they forget that they have a duty towards their country also. They violated the fundamental duty that the citizen must protect the unity, sovereignty, and integrity of India. So, in order to ensure that democracy has deep roots in the country, people should not only care about their fundamental rights, but they should also care about their fundamental duties. Relationship between fundamental rights, fundamental duties, and directive principle of state policy. When a fundamental right conflict with any legislation, the directive principle of state policy can be used to uphold its constitutionality. In a case, it was held that the fundamental rights are to be read keeping in mind the fundamental duties and directive principle of state policy. The fundamental rights cannot be read in isolation. In another case, it was held that there was a common thread that run through Part 3 of the Indian Constitution, Part 4 and Part 4A. Part 3 talks about fundamental rights, Part 4 talks about the directive principle of state policy, and Part 4A talks about fundamental duties. All these three are of utmost importance. Also, in another case, it was held that in order to uphold the constitutional validity of any act or legislation, or the reasonable restriction that is put on any fundamental right is challenged on the ground of any control, prohibition, or regulation, then it can be studied by taking into account fundamental rights, fundamental duties, and directive principle of state policy. And the last case, it was held that a balance should be maintained between fundamental rights, fundamental duties, and directive principle of state policy. If anyone is given more importance, then there would be an imbalance in the society. At last, I would like to conclude that due to non-enforceability, it is not that fundamental duties are not important. They are important in each and every way. When a person cares about his fundamental right because it is his fundamental rights, he should not forget that the duties have also a word fundamental in it. It generates the consciousness of people in the society. It provides the person with a sense of social responsibility that he has to perform some obligation that he has towards the society.